Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, and I have a brand new guest. I am proud to announce I have Attorney Lawrence DeMarco on. He is the founder of the Law Center and partner at DeMarco and DeMarco PC. He is one of the few lawyers with an advanced law degree in trial advocacy from Temple Law School. Larry has been a sole practitioner in the Philadelphia five-county area for 29 years and has a litigation firm and general practice. And I welcome you to the show, Attorney Larry. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks, Maryann. Thanks for having me as a guest. I'm real happy to be here.
Oh, this is great. I've been waiting for this. You have an excellent YouTube channel as well.
The Law Center, yes.
Yes.
I guess that's been about 3 years now.
Mhm.
I got into video with when I was involved with politics.
Mhm.
And I created first something called Delaware County Political News. Then I turned it into PA Voter Information Network for national and the statewide elections. I originally was in local politics. This was my passion. Politics was a passion.
Mhm.
And I started doing it so much, I figured, well, you know what? I'm a practicing lawyer. I should figure out a legal use of what was before a candidate video platform for local candidates who couldn't afford to pay for
Mhm.
coverage. And then I realized that I was getting good enough and had professional quality content, and I should make legal videos to help. I guess I really try to use it mostly for self-represented litigants in family court, because I was one and I have the strength of a law degree. So I wanted to help others not as fortunate. So that's the Law Center YouTube channel. There's a website that corresponds to it, but
Oh,
it's
I love
really
it.
a YouTube resource.
Yeah. Yeah, because you bring up parental alienation. It's almost like in a cartoon form. It explains it beautifully. I'm like really impressed with that.
Thanks. I'm impressed with that software as well. I don't remember why I went and looked for it. You know what? It was probably my wife gave me the tip. That's right. Robert Reich does the videos where he's writing on a whiteboard. And
Mhm.
she said, if you want to do explainer videos and discuss legal content, you should do that. And
Mhm.
I use what's called Doodly software.
Oh.
There's a flat rate, and I wanted to keep expenses down because I knew this wasn't any marketing. This wasn't anything that would generate business. I was doing this as a labor of love. So I knew I wanted to keep expenses down. And there's two softwares, Doodly and
Mhm.
Toonly, that offers one-time fees, which most of the other stuff is monthly subscriptions. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about and didn't check out the channel yet, think of what I would call comic book illustrations, but you see the artist as they draw the comic book image that
Mhm.
helps you tell a story or convey a legal concept. So, and then I got more advanced with what I would call stock footage, which is actors acting out a scene
Mhm.
so that I can add emotion and dramatic effect
Mhm.
to whatever concept that I was trying to convey. With parental alienation, it really works well,
Mhm.
and really family law too, because it has enough of a library. And so I consider myself until I receive a penny, I'll call myself an amateur producer.
Uh-huh.
But I think professional quality, because the stock footage is professional quality, and so are these animations. And Maryann, my brothers were always the artistic ones, and I
Oh.
envied them for their abilities when they would draw and I would scribble. My stuff
No.
looked like crap
Oh no.
when we were younger.
No.
And now I feel like a poor man's Walt Disney. So it's a fun software. I'm glad and it's a passion.
And it's great. It's great at explaining things completely.
It is. It's opened up a whole new doors in teaching. I'm a practicing attorney, but I'm a frustrated educator at heart. And this has just really kicked open a door to be able to do this.
Well, this must also help your clients, I would think.
Yeah, I am a personal injury and workers' compensation attorney. So I don't have an active family practice because
Mhm,
I, like probably you and so many others, believe the family court system has so many problems.
mhm,
I don't think we should be in an adversarial court system. I
mhm,
think that there should be an agency that handles this stuff administratively where lawyers are precluded and not
mhm,
allowed. So, and it shouldn't be an adversarial process. It should be a process dealing with counselors, social workers, teachers to help parents get through the most traumatic, which should be really a traumatic, the breaking of a vow
mhm,
and splitting of a family. Those emotions, all those painful emotions, which could easily turn into anger, should not be done in an adversarial court system where lawyers are getting paid, gosh, now $300 an hour. It might
mhm,
be the
mhm,
lower end, but it's getting to be more.
mhm,
So I don't have an active family law practice. Really, what you see on the Law Center is the extent of what I do, and it's free. I have
mhm,
something called family law coaching if
mhm,
someone wants to retain me for my time, but I'm not going to take on someone if I can feel that they need a lawyer who's going to litigate for them, or if there's a lower expense coach that could have help. But I do
mhm,
provide family law online, like through Zoom, online support services,
mhm,
as well as put up these videos, which is me explaining what to do if you're representing yourself in court.
mhm. Well, I think family court should just be abolished. I don't know what you think of
So
that.
uh, I would have to say, what do you mean? So what would you replace it with? Because a lot of people say that, and then when I press them further, they have a very specific grievance that, or I guess what I would ask is, what are you replacing it with?
How about civil court?
Well, family court is do you mean with a jury?
Well, that would be nice, but we all know that's not going to happen. But, I'm all for, videos or video cameras and tamper-proof mics, but, it's the like you said, the adversarial tension has got to stop in these courtrooms.
Sure.
Um,
So we're agreeing there. So let me just specify more. Family court technically is civil court. Every court is civil except for criminal court. However, family court is a court of equity. So what I might be hearing you say is take it out of equity and make it a non-equity court where um, eliminate the equity provisions of the court. Which
mhm.
uh, is that where you mean civil
Well,
court?
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So then, to think I haven't thought that through
Mhm,
because it's really an academic discussion because I
mhm,
don't think that there's any political will for it. I
mhm,
think the first thing that we're thinking of maybe is, what do you thought about repealing no-fault divorce, where it's much, much harder to get a divorce if one side contests? What do you think? What are your thoughts about that, Maryann? I'm curious.
mhm. I've never thought of that. Um, when I lived in England, when someone filed for divorce, they had to wait 2 years for it to be final. I don't know, if you wanna leave, I don't I don't know.
Right. No, the whole idea behind it is to make it much harder for one spouse to abandon the other. So it
Mhm,
does take 2 years now. At least we're in Pennsylvania.
mhm,
I'm in Philadelphia. I understand you're on the West Coast. It was nice to see you in Pittsburgh. So last week, that is.
mhm, yeah,
So in Pennsylvania, you have to wait 2 years if another spouse contests, but
mhm,
there's no consideration of fault in terms of anything financial.
mhm,
And if one spouse hasn't abandoned the other, and another spouse gave their heart, life, and soul to that other spouse, to their great financial detriment, in equity court, things are supposed to be fair, but is it really fair when you can't consider fault to that spouse who didn't breach vows, who wanted to stay, who loved for long as we both shall live, and someone else is taking that love, gaining from it, and then giving it away to someone else. So that is the concept of abolishing no fault, bringing in blame, allowing the judge to weigh, the fault grounds on the financial division when a group is, when a pair is splitting, which I actually just learned about recently, the details of it, and am now a proponent for making it a lot harder for people to get out and for allowing fault to enter in.
Yep. Well, that's true too. But I like what you said earlier about like the mediation with no attorneys. People can do it. The problem is when you have a high conflict personality disorder that you have to deal with, it just makes it harder because, because I mean, I had co-parented well for 10 years. And then, when a third party, probably with a personality disorder, enters the picture and, all havoc breaks out.
Sure, when you're separated and things are working well, and then someone remarries and then throws a wrench into the
Yes.
whole operation. Even just to revisit abolishing family court, there, in theory, some
Mhm.
things can be done a lot better
Mhm.
in civil court, but I believe the system would crawl to a stop. Already, judges who in equity court can make quick decisions, and you can have the process somewhat streamlined. You already have backlogs in many jurisdictions where you have to wait this inordinate amount of time to deal with a pressing issue. So that's where my uh, uh, I guess support of family court. I want to reform it, not abolish it.
Okay. Like, well, how do you reform it when you have these judges that do not hold anyone accountable? Like, for instance, when a judge says, okay, both parties, you two get together and figure out a visitation schedule. And it doesn't happen because you're working with a high conflict personality disorder that is not going to let you see the kids.
Well, that's one great example of when things can come to a screeching halt. But um, I think if you have everyone in the family court system, from your judges, your masters, your commissioners, or whoever is, and mediators who are trained, or anyone who is responsible for helping parties through the system, should have a minimum requiring of training that right now is not required. I think intensive training should be mandatory. All family court professionals should have really a social worker expertise. I don't know about a master's, but intensive training and understanding of things, things like how to distinguish between parental alienation
Mhm.
versus abuse and estrangement.
Mhm.
I want to avoid the fight between the domestic violence lobby and the parental alienation proponents, because if you have enough training in both, then it's not, you'll have our professionals making better decisions in working through this. Because if you abolish a system of family court, then if family court had been abolished, I would never have protected my son,
Mhm.
or have my son would not have had a good life because of what one party or the other during our divorce would have. I'm grateful. I actually was lucky in getting
Mhm.
through. So without even getting into details, family court was good to me, but
Mhm.
I was strong. I had resources to
Mhm.
put forth my best case. And I understand that most people don't. They could end up going bankrupt, run out of money, then have to do it themselves.
Mhm.
And then your decision is going to be random.
Mhm.
So I get that. I do, but I just think that we can do it more efficiently and better.
Well, definitely. It's just, it seems like there is a lot of corruptness, a lot of bias and collusion. Uh, these judges and attorneys both drink at the same watering hole. They're discussing your case at a bar. The only reason why I know that is my hairdresser said, I don't know how you win your case. You're not going to win your case because I hear them talk at the bar about your case or somebody else's case. He said, I don't know how anyone would ever win.
Sure. So I actually did a video on 5 ways to reform. I think I said the courts generally. I don't even think I said family court. In fact, I know I did it generally, but family court is where these problems are the worst. And the problem is transparency
Mhm.
and accountability. And to me, the best ways of getting to reform for transparency, it would be more concrete guidelines for conflict of interest recusal. Right now, a judge must recuse if they say, or the standard is actually kind of strict, even if there's the appearance of impropriety, the judge must step down. But you can make that argument for every member of the same political party that the judge held
Mhm.
before the judge was elected. Because if they endorse that judge and help get that judge elected, gee, that's the appearance of a conflict of interest.
Mhm.
So it's overbroad, and therefore almost never are you entitled to recusal. Therefore, who has the power to make that decision? Well, right now it's the judge himself or herself. So to me, that you need more specific guidelines. And then number two, I think you have to measure performance objectively,
Mhm.
either through the election system, where how we are choosing our judges,
Mhm.
a strict merit-based system, or better guidelines for bar association recommendations or not recommendations. It can be a political, as we have it now, a bar recommendation can be just a political favor. There's
Mhm.
not an objective, stringent standard in most counties throughout the country. And I recommend what the Philadelphia Bar has adopted could really be an objective measurement. And then accountability. I do think I actually want, that was just accountability measure. The other transparency that I was thinking, to be honest, was having, like you said, cameras in courtrooms. Pennsylvania is very restrictive in when cameras are allowed, if ever. But I think that Pennsylvania and other jurisdictions should have a liberal standard. And other ways of accountability is to have a non-political judicial conduct board. Right now, the foxes are guarding the hen houses,
Mhm.
not only in Pennsylvania, other jurisdictions. I don't have a jurisdiction to jurisdiction measurement, but another is abolish absolute immunity for malicious and
Mhm.
corrupt orders, not negligence. Judges should be immune from negligence, but they should not be immune from malicious and corrupt orders.
Mhm.
So those accountability and transparency is our problem, like you mentioned, and those are ways that I would tighten up the court system and our judiciary.
Mhm. Well, you're right. The fox is guarding the hen house, and from what I hear from a bunch of people, this is not a gender, type of thing. This is happening to mothers and fathers, and it's just, I don't know what to think when people tell me their cases. I'm like so appalled. I thought my case was bad. And then I'm hearing
Sure.
someone with the worst case and a judge that's, I think, crazy. And I think judges should be drug tested randomly. And I think they should also have psychological evals once a year.
Uh, there's more ways to um, require accountability than the ones that I propose, of course.
Mhm. So you don't think they should be drug tested or?
I haven't really. I don't know what never gave it much thought.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, should they be drug tested? Like I said, I'll defer. I I would they make, I didn't really know that there was a push for it. I mean, I'm unaware of, honestly, I'm going to defer. I didn't give it much thought. Should they or
Okay.
shouldn't they? I haven't seen it as a problem to want to impose that upon them. Um, I think that if they're making mistakes that egregious, you would catch such egregious misconduct through a normal accountability process. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that on my agenda, or I didn't see it as a need, but I may not have seen things that you have seen in your video casts or podcasts, excuse me. So I'd like to learn more about it, the pros and cons, before I weigh in.
Yeah. Well, it's just that some judges run their courtrooms like a three-ring circus, and you're sitting there wondering, what are they on? Are they on something? And then they pass away of pancreatitis 2 months later, and then you're wondering, what medications could they have been on to alter their thought process while handling a very important case. I mean, these judges are playing with families' lives, kids' lives.
I have to say that family court is considered to be a starter position in a lot of judicial systems, but it should be for the most senior,
Mhm,
knowledgeable, and trained judge, not for the beginner. So as
mhm,
a general matter, I can agree with you that there should be a change. We should prioritize what happens in family court much differently than society does now. With that, we are in 100% agreement.
mhm. So as far as parental alienation goes, people say, "Oh, these judges don't care," or "They need to be educated." And I think they know about it. They just don't want to deal with it.
I The only thing that I would say on that is that there seems to be a large disinformation campaign, and it's written about by many authors and experts in parental alienation, specifically William Burnett, who studied the science. He's the chair of the Parental Alienation Study Group, and he's reviewed the science, and he's found 80 instances of disinformation, what appeared to be a deliberate falsehood by the authors, and a perpetuating of the writing by major publishing companies in the both healthcare and legal community. So I think that you have judges who are misinformed deliberately,
Mhm,
so that they have heard the science challenged, and because they did not have the training on the actual parental alienation theory, they believe the disinformation that is junk science and based
mhm,
upon false premises upon which it's not based.
mhm,
So I would, just to respond to you and saying, wait, judges won't even allow it mentioned in their courtroom, but they will allow contact problems,
mhm,
relationship problems, because they believe you're staying away from the science, which they don't understand and of which they were disinformed.
mhm,
So I believe that if you had proper training, what you're concerned about wouldn't even be a problem, but it's a
mhm,
disinformation problem, not judges having bad opinions, or it's a completely counterintuitive theory and discipline.
mhm.
So you need experts to be able to rule or handle these highly specialized cases.
Mhm. And it seems okay. You've got what I'm hearing is a lot of parents are saying, he ruled in favor of the narcissist. The narcissist lied. You know how these people get on the stand and they turn on the tears or whatever, and I don't know. I don't know what to think. Should these judges be educated in several personality disorders?
I think so. You bring up one of the greatest arguments for training judges and professionals in parental alienation. For instance, parental alienation is highly counterintuitive because alienators, and narcissists present as confident. I think it's 4 C's: calm, cool, confident, composed, something to that degree. They make great impressions in court. Now, judges are making, well, actually, in contrast, alienated, targeted parents appear with 4 A's: anxious, agitated, angry, and aggressive, or something other A's that are similar meaning. Make a terrible impression in court. They appear like the alienating parent when they're in fact the victim. So this is something, why that is, and the science behind that is what's taught by parental alienation theorists and by the professionals, why it has to be done by, why specialists need to make these decisions. Otherwise, you actually make the opposite decision. You empower the alienator and further victimize the targeted parent, which is the whole reason for and the need for the education.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think some of these law firms, and some of them do have like a psychologist there that they have their clients talk to? And
I wasn't aware of that. Like
mm-hmm.
I said, I do think that anyone going through a divorce should be going through a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
going to a psychologist or a
Mm-hmm.
counselor, or at least a support group, even
Mm-hmm.
if it's a non-professional online support group of people going through the same thing that you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most important things to do when you're going through a divorce is first take care of yourself before you can be a good parent. Make sure that you are functioning at a minimum level. Otherwise, you're going to make more continuing mistakes. So, I mean, it's a sad commentary that law firms have to provide mental health services.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very careful. I hate to say it, but I think that's an added expense that you don't want your lawyer passing on to you.
Mm-hmm.
Something that we as litigants should be taken care of on our own. I don't think it should be done through a law firm. But gosh, I appreciate the diligence and the carefulness of the law firm to make sure that if they see someone whose needs aren't being met on their own resources, to make sure that the client has some type of consultation, so that, because your personal self-destructive decisions can negatively impact your divorce or your custody battle.
Right. And people don't realize they're doing this. They, like you said, self-care and taking care of themselves. But it seems like when some people get into a courtroom, they just lose it because it's like daunting, and it's PTSD.
It's traumatizing. It's re-traumatizing. Yeah, the only thing that my contribution is I have a playlist on my YouTube channel called General Family Law Self-Help Playlist. There might be 20 videos or so or more that help you prepare for a hearing, give you ways to reduce anxiety and stress, and to be prepared for the general family court hearing. There's also something else that I want to bring to the attention of your viewers, and it's something called limited scope legal representation. I see you nodding your head, Maryann, so I'm sure you've heard of it. But bottom line is, in law school, traditionally, over the years, lawyers were taught when you undertake professional responsibility to a client, you must give highly capable, highly competent representation for the result. To be safe and to really do that at the highest level, how we lawyers have interpreted that is to really protect your client from beginning to end, to cover everything and anything that you can that brings your client closer to the best result you can bring in family court. Now, one thing lawyers might do is they make things overcomplicated and maybe overreach. So to do that for some people who call the lawyer every day for every stressful thought or whatnot, this can get to be six figures, hundreds of thousands of dollars if you really take that as far as you can. But then you've outpriced yourself out of any usefulness because the client's going to run out of money, or except for very few very wealthy people. But most people don't want the representation, the amount of hours that they're really technically asking for. So that's why I believe, well, part of what's on my YouTube page is how to educate the client on how to relate to your lawyer. And the best type of lawyer is not that traditional lawyer who is imposing all the ethical obligations of the world onto his or her shoulders, and therefore giving you an enormous expense that most of us as litigants can't bear. So a limited scope lawyer will contractually limit himself and protect himself or herself from this ethical burden that's imposed on our profession by rules of professional conduct. But so you need to know that term, limited scope, or unbundled services or something similar, where you and your lawyer are allowed to contract that your lawyer is not responsible for your every thought. Now, you should be educated on what you should and should do before you impose that on yourself and let your lawyer completely off the hook. But so what you're doing is you're doing what you don't need someone with a law degree to do, which might be just hold your hand in court, negotiate to help you with that panic, that panic attack that you get because you were crushed by your family being destroyed. So maybe someone to negotiate, help with communication, and maybe you can't fill out that document. You want a lawyer to give you the confidence of the strategy behind the initial petition. But there's other things like, folding paper or writing a letter about, yes, I can pick up my child at 7, then you come up, I'll pick up my 7, then you come get the child at 7 p.m. on Sunday. That might be something you don't want the lawyer to pay for, $300 or hundreds of dollars just for a letter. You might be able to handle something else more efficiently. But it's the whole process of unbundled services or limited scope lawyer that only a fraction of the profession does, that I strongly recommend self-represented litigants in family court retain someone to help you with maybe consultation, the final negotiation, helping you maybe negotiate documents or whatever you need. And there's a whole list. And these types of lawyers will talk you through that, and you can save 80 cents on a dollar from traditional representation. I strongly recommend.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I always tell parents, don't email the lawyer with everything. When you see the lawyer and you walk into court or, then talk to him or her and, say it all then. That way you're not going to be billed as much for that.
Sure. There's a financial disincentive for the lawyer to educate you on how to find information on your own, because they want you. I mean, they generally, lawyers are businesses too. They're business people, so they want your business. And if you're asking them for something, you just put your lawyer in a conflict with you if you are needy on your own. And the more you can, the lawyer's happy to do that work. But there's a nice, healthy balance to reach that we as self-represented litigants can do if you educate yourself and learn part of that journey on your own through books, online resources. I like to give everyone a tip, lawhelp.org. If you're in Pennsylvania, that would be palawhelp.org. So it's the acronym of your state. The abbreviation, whether it's New Jersey, Maryland is MD lawhelp.org, New Jersey, NJ lawhelp.org. It has it's a nonprofit organization that puts all the online resources in one place for you, not only for family court, but for any type of court. Before anyone should go to a lawyer, they should go to lawhelp.org first. and educate yourself as much as you can. And then when you get a lawyer, don't stop, because you can also reduce your limited scope bill. The more you do, the more you learn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I always came prepared. I had always made copies for the lawyer. You know, if I'd always give them like 2 copies because, you know, no offense, but the lawyers lose stuff, you know. But
Keep one on your own, sure.
yeah, you know, so you know, I tell people to do that. Make 4 copies of everything, keep even 2, and give the lawyer 2. And that way they have, you know, things that they need because you have to do work on your own as a client to help your attorney.
That's right.
Yeah.
In my experience as well, no doubt.
Yeah. Because, you know, the lawyer's looking for information and, you know, it's, they can't just pull this stuff out of the air. You know, it has to be good communication, but you also have to give them paperwork of what happened, say in a previous case, you know, and not to change subjects, but there are also clients that go through attorneys constantly. Like someone will say, I've had 15 attorneys. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's 15 retainer fees.
That's right. I'm glad you brought that up. On my YouTube channel, I have a playlist called Limited Scope Lawyers. You can find it on the home page. The first 3 videos teach you how to have your first lawyer, meaning all the steps that you should take before you get the lawyer, when you get the lawyer, and how to choose your lawyer, and how to prepare everything for your first meeting, because you may have a long history and you may want to tell that story to the lawyer, but the lawyer doesn't want to hear that. They want to hear things very succinctly, and there's a right way and there's a wrong way, and I go through that in detail. Before you call your lawyer, follow these steps. Please go to that video. It's one of the first 3 of the playlist of limited scope playlists, and I believe you can save yourself thousands. I won't even talk to a client until I tell them to watch that, because of the stories that I want to be told, that the lawyer can either, you know, give you a 10-minute consultation free, 15 minutes, and they stop, now pay for this time. And you can make whatever your dollars or your free time or whatever
Yeah.
with that lawyer go so much further if
Mm-hmm.
you are prepared before you go and you prepare a certain way.
I'm really happy you have this YouTube channel. It's so helpful. And you also had a video on alienated children's drawings with Dr. Burnett.
Yes.
That was excellent.
Thank you. Experts of parental alienation, including Dr. Burnett from the Parental Alienation Study Group, were good enough as to give me their PowerPoint presentations.
Mm-hmm.
And I would make sure that I had the script right before I would begin. So you hear my voice on these videos.
Mm-hmm.
They would take really an hour or more to give their presentation, but I broke them down into 10-minute snippets.
Mm-hmm.
And well, it could be as short as 3 minutes. And I think one video was as long as 35 minutes. Another long one was as long as 20 minutes, Burnett's. And all the other ones are somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes. I think one of Dr. Miller, it might be as long as 20 minutes, but they're mostly around 10. So, but it's my voice, but it's not my work. I get that from the most brilliant, most learned, knowledgeable experts on parental alienation in the world. So that's a great playlist. I strongly recommend people who are facing that, or actually just getting separated, should check that out. God forbid you get faced with it, but at least you'll know when you see it if you're not.
Definitely. Definitely. You know, as an attorney, what advice do you have for individuals going through a high conflict battle that involves parental alienation, or they have also an opposing high conflict attorney that is going along with the parental alienation?
So if you are in that unfortunate situation that Maryann just suggested, I can't understate the seriousness of what you're facing and what a life-changing event that is, because denial is a real easy thing to, is a real easy emotion to struggle with, hoping it'll all go away or that you can handle this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have someone with a strong personality, and along with that, a personality disorder, to me, what that is, people mistake personality disorders and high conflict divorces with evil.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I see it online a lot. I was guilty of that. I may have been used against me, but I see all my friends say this X is evil.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to suggest that it's really not. I not suggest, I know it's not. A personality disorder, a person doesn't wake up and saying, you know what, I'm going to really severely damage my children today. That's what I'm going to do. What a great
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what's happening. What's happening is some type of sickness. It's self-destructive behavior. It's misidentifying negative emotion that someone is projecting onto you,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're acting on a fight or flight response.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my first word of advice is that you need to research, that your lawyer's not enough, your doctor's not enough, but you can really benefit and maximize from preparing, from planning, and taking that situation as one of the most serious situations that face any type of individual of any kind. The complete destruction of both you and your family, you and your children, because someone is going to take all the anger, passion, and emotion and direct it to you in a negative way. And there are things that you can do to diffuse it and protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And authors like Amy Baker,
Mm-hmm.
who's written a book, how to litigate in a high conflict divorce. I really would suggest, even to be more general, go to PASG and reach out to their Facebook group, and ask for advice. You give a general situation, a hypothetical, and ask what books are best for your situation,
Mm-hmm.
because the authors there who write the books on the subject, I think reading one of those books is a minimum, because the time that you spend in reading one of those books versus the time that the time that you're going to spend litigating and the money that you're going to spend on a lawyer is, you really need to educate yourself to make it through. And that's the strongest general but most reaching, powerful advice that I could give someone in that situation, that you and it'll be constant, and you will be educating yourself really on this almost for the rest of your life, because if you have a toxic partner who you're raising a child with, it doesn't end even after they graduate school, after they graduate high school. It still goes on. So I would say become a scholar on how to handle that, and then you could really thrive. You can really get to a point where the situation is manageable, more controllable than you ever thought. But you got to do your homework. You can't, there's no easy way.
Right. I agree. If people want to reach you, how can they reach you?
Thanks for asking. My law firm is www.DeMarco.com. My law center website is we all know www. I'm not going to say that. TheLawCenter.net is my website for the Law Center. And the YouTube channel is The Law Center. And if I should come right up, I should be at the top. If for whatever reason I'm not at the top,
You are. I just looked.
Great. You may have, only because you may have been watching me before you checked. But if I'm second or third, or if you don't see me right away, it's a symbol of the scale of justice. I would put DeMarco, the Law Center, and then all the other popular law centers won't come up. But I might be first. I might be top now because my views are skyrocketing.
You are.
Thanks.
Well, I'm so glad I had you on. I really appreciate your time. So is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I'm sorry. My email is glawrence.demarco@gmail.com. And Maryann, I'm asked if you could put some of my contact information in the description portion of where they find that podcast link. I'm not a big podcast fan, but for the YouTube audience who is watching this, you can definitely find my contact information in the description portion of the video. And then other than that, I want to say that I think technology can be a great friend to the person going through the high conflict situation. There is online content, not just in the law center, but if you type in high conflict divorce, how to win a custody case without a lawyer, and go to the YouTube pages that are most popular, that have millions of views, you can really supplement legal advice that you're getting. Don't trump the legal advice. Use it to supplement. Your lawyer is number one. But if you're self-representing, then the lawyer that you pay to do limited scope is still number one, but you can educate yourself efficiently, quickly, and you can watch videos that are directly related to your personal problem. So that's my closing thought.
That's excellent. Well, hey, don't jump off. Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms that in turn perpetuate parental alienation. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again in the future for another exciting episode. I'll probably have Attorney DeMarco back on again. So I totally thank you.
And I thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and it would be my pleasure.
Definitely.